Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Today, we are going to go ahead and first take a question from past year papers. So the question is, show the conditions for Cobb-Douglas production function under A, increasing returns to scale, B, constant returns to scale, C, decreasing returns to scale. Right? That's the first question that you want to go ahead and do. Second question, that it's a second part of this question only. So I can write this as A and B. Are the laws of returns compatible? Are the laws of returns compatible? Okay. Together, this is a 5 marks question. So it is not a very long question that you have to answer. बहुत छोटे में you need to go ahead and answer this question. So just give it a try. Take a moment. Try to do this question yourself first. Then we'll do this together. So how will we go ahead and how will we do this question? It says, first of all, if you look at the first part of the question, it is talking about returns to scale. Whenever we talk about returns to scale, it is a long run phenomenon. Long run phenomena means we are able to go ahead and we are able to scale all inputs. We are able to scale all inputs. That means we are able to scale labor also and capital also. Then it can be called as returns to scale. That's the first part of the question. When it says, are laws of returns compatible? So what is a law of return? Law of return basically is something that operates in the short run period. Right? Only, so law of return is nothing but law of variable proportion. When you hold the other factor constant and only change one factor of production, and that is your law of return. Right? Now, the first part is talking about the returns to scale, which means it is law of return. Actually, many books also go ahead and just say that law of return can be 2. So what they can go ahead and they can do in this case is, if you look into some of the Indian authors, they say law of return, and then they just say that one can be law of return of proportion, variable proportion, and other can be the law of return to scale. And they call both of them as law of return. But this proportion, this operates in the short run, and this scale operates in the long run. Okay. Now, if we talk about the law of returns of proportion, so isse corresponding, if I have to check if it is compatible or not, then I need to check if marginal product of the variable input is that diminishing or not. right? Is that diminishing or not? So if you remember, then this corresponds to this. So you have a phase where marginal product is increasing, then diminishing, it becomes zero and it becomes negative, right? This first phase, it is called as increasing returns to proportion. The second phase is called as decreasing returns to proportion. This third phase is called as negative returns to proportion, right? Whereas when we talk about the long run returns to scale, then this is when you are able to scale both the inputs, right? Here, it just tells you the relationship between input and output. That's it. It is just telling you the relationship between input and output, which we are anyways checking here through this, right? So now let's try to take this question ahead. So I can say that my production function can be written as A. You may or may not write the technology factor, it is fine. L to the power alpha, K to the power 1 minus alpha. You can also write this as beta, does not matter. Because if I just write currently 1 minus alpha, it automatically becomes CRS. We need to write for all three. So number one, increasing returns to scale, it suggests that when you scale your labor and capital, the output that is generated from here, it will be much more. It will be much more than going ahead and scaling the output directly. Then scaling the output directly, right? So if I go ahead and I put that condition here, what will happen? F of lambda L lambda K, and it will become A lambda L to the power alpha, lambda K to the power beta. And this will go ahead and give me A lambda to the power alpha, L to the power alpha, lambda to the power beta, K to the power beta. And this will give me lambda, this, this, and this. So now we want that this should be greater than lambda to the power 1 f of Lk. For IRS, I require it should be greater than lambda into f of Lk. So if I just compare the powers, this will be possible when alpha plus beta will be greater than 1. It will be possible when alpha plus beta will be greater than 1. So we can go ahead and we can say that this is my condition for IRS. My IRS condition is that the sum of the powers in the Cobb-Douglas function should be greater than 1. Okay. Now what you can go ahead and what you can do is, now you can do the same thing. I will not repeat this, but you can do a similar thing for CRS and you can do a similar thing for DRS also, right? So what will happen in that case? So for CRS, if you use the same mechanism, यहाँ तक ये सारा same लिखना है. But for CRS, what is your equation? Your equation is that if you scale labor and capital, then it is equal to output times the scalar lambda. Okay. Now what is here is that if you will solve this, if you will, because it's an equal to, you just keep putting equal to. So you will get alpha plus beta exactly equal to 1. That would be the condition for CRS. And the third one is, if you do DRS, then it is that when you scale the inputs, it should be less than scalar times the output. It should be less than scalar times the output. So you will go ahead and get alpha plus beta less than 1. Alpha plus beta less than 1. So these three will turn out to be your conditions. Now if I just want to compare it with law of returns, so I will assume returns to proportion and I will just check marginal product of labor also, right? So, so what will happen is part B, it's just for 1 mark. So you have your output as A, L to the power alpha, A to the power beta. So if I do del Y by del L, this will give me my marginal product of labor. So I will get A alpha to the power 1, alpha minus 1 to the power beta. This is positive. So marginal product is positive. And now if I just check whether it is diminishing or not, I will differentiate this with respect to labor. And I will get this. Now in the background, we are assuming, so not here, write this part somewhere in the answer, that we are assuming that alpha and beta, they are positive powers. Alpha and beta, they are positive powers, right? They are positive. So now what happens is, and not only they are positive, but you can also actually go ahead and assume, to be precise, you can assume that alpha and beta, they are between 0 and 1. So we are assuming that alpha and beta, they are between 0 and 1, right? Now, if I assume that, so I can go ahead and I can say that if alpha is between 0 and 1, only then alpha minus 1 will be less than 0. And this will imply diminishing returns. So only if this assumption is kept in mind, only if I assume that alpha will be less than 1, only then we can have this condition being there that what is going to be your value of, how it is going to be consistent with the returns to proportion, right? So this is how you can go ahead and solve this question. It's just a 5 marker. बहुत ज़्यादा लिखने का जरूरत नहीं है. This much should suffice, right? Okay, let's go back to what we were doing then. Right. So the topic that we are going to go ahead and we are going to